Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness. Welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Today we have Kate Jaramillo, and she is from the Ketogenic Living 101 website. You can check it out, ketogenicliving101.com. And she also has the Straight Up Wellness podcast. She's doing a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, today we were talking more in the keto world. Now we talk about kind of dirty keto versus, whole food keto. So eating healthy foods and going keto versus the kind of if it fits your macros approach to just eating fat foods and how you can be healthy and unhealthy in those situations. We talk about ketogenic diets in general. And then we also even talk about ketogenic diets and performance, obviously something I'm hugely interested in right now. And I have a lot more information about my ketogenic experiment that we discuss in this episode. I'm thinking about doing a specific episode to give you guys more information one-on-one about my personal experience with keto and performance. But Kate gave me a lot of great tips and ideas and things to think about. I do think that if you're interested in this stuff at all, listen to it all the way through. She even mentioned some client success stories she's had that I found really fascinating. So without any further ado, here is Kate. Enjoy
all right,
this episode.
Kate, welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Super pumped to have you today.
I'm super pumped to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some fun. I was recently on her podcast. You guys should definitely check that out. Where should people go to check that out?
You know what? We're like on Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. It's Straight Up Wellness. Super cool.
Awesome. All right, now we're going to get started with some challenges before we get into anything else. So how about a fitness challenge for everybody listening?
All right, don't kill the messenger, but I am a burpee lover, and one of my best friends goes by Nance Sanity. She totally turned me on to like all the burpees too. If you can do 100 burpee challenge over the course of 30 days, it will change your body, and it will totally change your mind too, because you're going to be like, I am such a badass.
So what is the 100 burpee challenge?
100 burpees a day for 30 days.
Oh yeah, that sounds like some fun. And can you break them up throughout the day, or is it like 100 straight?
Oh, you can break them up as long as you complete the 100. I've done 50 and 50, and that's worked really well for me.
Okay, awesome. And how about a mental toughness challenge?
Mental toughness, I mean, it sounds a little bit soft, but it's just going to equip you with just a better attitude and ways to go about your day. I love the Calm app. So 10 minutes of meditation per day, or the Insight Timer app, like a 10 minutes of meditation that you really connect with, followed by a gratitude practice, writing down 10 things that you are grateful for every day that will totally change your mind and your mood, and you will be ready to attack the day.
I love that. Now, tell me about this Calm app. I think I may have seen ads for it before, but I've never actually used it. How does it work?
Yeah, you know what? They have like tons and tons of different meditations that are loaded up on there. You just download the Calm app to your phone, and then you can just search for different meditations like by time or like by theme. Same thing with the Insight Timer app. And I tend to use that one a little bit more because we have some of our favorites on there. Actually, every night when I'm putting my kids to bed, there is a children's nighttime meditation that we play, almost the same one every single night. It's this like beautiful story about rainbow angels and how they protect you and they share with you and they love you. And it's like this beautiful story to put a child to sleep. My kids love it. And they're out in like 10 minutes.
And that one's in the Insight Timer app?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're free. It's free.
Awesome. I'm going to have to go check those out. I appreciate the recommendations and the overall mental toughness challenge. I think any form of meditation is a mental toughness challenge for sure. And gratitude is just an amazing practice to have, I think, for anyone on a daily basis.
Totally.
All right. Now, how about a book recommendation? Now, this could be anything from something you recently read to maybe something that's impacted your life.
A book that I recently read that I just totally related to and fell in love with was Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. I just really, really felt like our lives were paralleled in different ways, not like what we've been through, but what we've thought about and how we've spoken to ourselves. She's doing this like last 90-day challenge right now, which is, just like changing your routine for the last 90 days of the year to set yourself up for success moving forward. But she's just got such a great perspective. And I think, we all strive for more like personal connection. And when we sometimes feel that we're alone, in our thoughts or in our actions, and how we self-sabotage or judge ourselves and speak to ourselves in a negative way. And she puts it all out there about like the lies that we tell ourselves and why they're not true and why we are so amazing and special just being ourselves.
Awesome. I will have to definitely check it out. I've actually seen that book. I think it got pretty popular. You know, I saw some people posting about it on Facebook and stuff. So is it relatively new?
I think so. I want to say maybe it's like, I don't know, like a couple years old. I'm not really sure. I just picked it up recently and thought it was amazing. And she's got another book that's releasing in March. I think your wife may have heard of her, and she may really like the book too.
Yeah, that could be possible. Very possible. Okay, let's transition to just your background. I mean, if you want to take me, as far back, really, I want to hear about your story and your background. So take me as far back as you need to, and then up to today, what you're working on and what you're most passionate about.
Sure. Awesome. So growing up, I was not like super athletic. I did like individual sports like track and swimming and diving. But I just and working out was definitely not my thing. In fact, in high school, I went and I trained with a personal trainer. Literally, it was like one day I went in to like train for like diving or something like that. And he worked me out like so hard that I legit could not sit down for like a week. And because I felt like I was like injured, I mean, my whole body hurt, I never went back. Like I just didn't go back to the gym. And I didn't grow up eating healthy food. My mom wasn't, just like cooking just kind of wasn't her thing. So a lot of stuff that we ate was like prepackaged or from bags or boxes or fast food or something like that. But I always just really loved food. It was total foodie. And I worked in restaurants and just always loved eating like different types of cuisine. And food to me today is still just like so important. I think it's not just fuel, but a way to like show love and the care that you put into food and it brings people together and it's part of culture. But, I was just kind of blessed with like good genes and a good metabolism that the amount of food that I ate or what exactly I ate, I never really had, like a weight problem myself. I did in college probably like drink myself up to like 10 more pounds or like I went to school in Philly. I'm from Philly. So eating lots of like Philly cheesesteaks and stuff may not have been the best decision for my body. But, I just never really had any sort of weight issues like that. I didn't go back to the gym or start up another fitness routine until I was in my 20s and I was working for the Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia. And we had a gym membership deal with this amazing gym, the Sporting Club. And that's where I started going like with some of my coworkers. Spin class is what totally hooked me on being in the gym. And I didn't lift weights for a really long time. I just went to spin class because I just wanted to like be in a room that was dark with loud music on a bike and sweat a whole lot. So that was really what got me back into fitness. And because I loved spin so much, I became a certified spin instructor and I just started teaching classes. And at the time it was like, just like happy hour money. But then after the birth of my first daughter, I moved from Philadelphia down to Florida and spin then for me, teaching spin classes was like my primary income. And like, instructors don't get paid a whole lot of money, but it was literally just like my way of contributing to like our grocery shopping at the Green Market that week and a way to get me out of the house. But because I decided to stay home, I got more into fitness and I just ended up getting more certifications and training and teaching at different gyms, doing group fitness and personal training classes. And during that time, people would always ask me what I was eating. And I never really had any sort of specific plan. I just kind of ate whatever. And then I kind of followed that 6 meals a day and in these small colored containers thing for a little while. But two things, I guess, that I just thought were normal, that I didn't realize were food related were I always had sugar cravings, like forever and ever. I'm originally from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And also I always had that 3 p.m. energy crash, like my whole life. I remember at 3 p.m. just being so tired and sometimes taking naps when I got home after school. But I never thought that was food related until I decided to get a nutrition certification through the Institute of Nutritional Leadership. And it was during that time where I really learned a little bit more about how food was affecting my diet, my mood, my mood, my energy levels, my skin, all of those things. And it was also where I learned about the ketogenic lifestyle. Now, at the time, I had been working with a group of women who were totally plateaued, in their health and fitness. I was involved with the direct sales company at that time. And it was like, no matter how hard they worked out or, cut calories and counted containers, they just really, nothing was working for them and they weren't feeling good. So I somehow convinced them to go on this crazy, like, fat fueled journey with me, fully letting them know that, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I may make you gain weight, but this really makes sense to me. And I really think I can help you lose that weight. So 9 of them agreed. And over the course of about 8 weeks, we were working out. We were really just kind of looking at carb intake, not really anything else. But during the course of those 8 weeks, the average amount that these women lost was about 20 pounds, which was amazing. Like, I totally knew that I was onto something with this. For me, I didn't really need to lose weight. And I was teaching a lot of group fitness at the time. So not only so on the great side is I started to break my sugar addiction. I had that sustained energy and mental clarity. So no more 3 p.m. energy crash. I felt fuller longer. I was happier with my foods. But I also lost a little bit too much weight. And I ended up having some hormonal imbalances, like not getting my period for 4 months. And I actually, during that time, I was like, well, I must be pregnant again. Like, that's just, I guess that's what's happening, And I went to my OBGYN and, she's like, have you taken a test? I was like, well, no, but I haven't got my period in 4 months. So, and she ran some tests and she's like, listen, she's like, you're not pregnant, but your body fat percentage is really low. And some women do okay at 13% body fat. Mine doesn't like that. I need to be around 18% or, whatever, 20, but at least 18% for everything to be functioning okay with my body. So that was kind of a little bit of a dip in my journey. But I'm glad I had it because now I understand how to overcome it. For me, it was really cutting back on the amount of group fitness that I was teaching. I was up to 12 or 13 classes a week, all really high intensity. And, I was not eating a ton of food because I was so full all the time. So I made some adjustments with my fitness schedule. I adjusted my macros a little bit more. I was definitely intaking, more protein then. And I, balanced myself out and I felt really great. And then over the course of this time, I kept tweaking my own program and what I wanted to do and teach other people, especially women. And it was Ketogenic Living 101 was born. And it's become this awesome 7-week program that we lead people through to safely and effectively help them adopt a ketogenic lifestyle. And I knew that this was my jam. I really loved keto and I wanted to learn as much about it as I could. And I studied my ass off with all kinds of books and resources and everything. But at the time, there wasn't any specialty certification for keto. So I was being mentored by some of the best people in the wellness industry. So I approached them about working on this project with me. We brought one of our doctor friends on board, and we were able to create the Ketogenic Living Coach certification. And it was the first one to be approved for CEU credits through NASM, AFA, CanFit Pro in Canada. We're actually working on some more. And to this day, right today, we've had about 175 coaches at this point, people all over the world become certified in this ketogenic lifestyle. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. That's pretty incredible. Incredible story. So I want to hop back to the part of those first 9. I think it was 9 women who decided to go on the fat fueled journey with you. What time frame is this year wise? I'm just curious.
This was about 3 years ago. So people weren't yet really even starting to talk about keto, because keto has really burst on the scene about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I was wondering, because I think if you mentioned, a ketogenic diet or ketosis, anything beyond 2 years ago, people would be like, what are you talking about? Now it's, it's gained a lot of popularity and everyone's heard about it in some degree.
Back then it was like crazy enough for them to be like, I don't know what that is, but okay.
That's awesome. So, let's talk about keto for a little bit. I am currently doing a keto experiment, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I'm no expert, but just enough to be dangerous right now with my own personal journey. And I do have a guide who's walking me through it. We had him on the podcast. His name's James Slade. He's been helping me because it's I'm primarily performance focused, and so I'd like to know if there's anyone that you'd recommend not jump straight to the keto diet, or do you think that it's a good approach for most people? Having nothing to do with what I said about performance, I'm just wondering about your general recommendations about people and getting started if they want to do it. Is there any stair-step process to that, or you think the Band-Aid approach for getting involved in ketogenic lifestyle is okay?
I think it's so individual, because, sometimes sometimes I'll talk to people that are like, I'm all or nothing. I'm all in or I'm all out, which is, as we both know as coaches, that can be such a dangerous approach and mindset. Because then it's like, if they go off plan for like one meal, then it's all over, I think that, like, for me, what worked with the women that I was working with at the time was to kind of like ease in by just looking first at carb intake. I think that so many people are used to that standard American diet, or they're used to that food pyramid that has whole grains as like the thing that we should eat the most of. So at that point, it's like changing the mindset and taking something that has been such a large part of their diet and really working on reducing it and replacing it. And I am personally not zero carb. Like, that doesn't work for me. I do eat vegetables, and I eat berries, and I eat them as much as my body is calling for at the time. Certain vegetables don't personally agree with me, but they agree with other people. But I think the approach of working on cutting down carbs first and bringing that down to a level that feels good for most people, because really, it's not in the presence of fat, but in the absence of carbohydrates, which are, going to turn into glucose, that really helps our bodies get into a ketogenic state. So I think that starting with carbs is one of the most important things. And I am also really big with educating our clients on reading food labels, and making sure that we're leading with whole foods. I mean, I guess it's so awesome that there's been a rise in popularity of keto, because I do feel that it is such a life-saving lifestyle. But because of that, food manufacturers are smart. They want to be able to capitalize on this, and so they're creating foods that just have so many weird ingredients in them, and they're being marketed to the low carb and ketogenic community as like, oh, only 4 net carbs, and yet you flip the back over, it's like 30 grams of total carbs, and like 26 of them are all coming from like sugar alcohols.
Right.
So yeah, I think, starting with carbs and becoming educated about food labels are like the 2 most important places to start.
I see this happen with any diet that that gets any sort of popularity, like you're talking about, to the level where food manufacturers take notice of it, and they see it as a marketing opportunity to get a piece of the healthy eater market share, if you will.
Yeah.
And so they find out the rules and they start manipulating them. And this is, it's happened to paleo, it's happened to keto. It's just I'm sure I don't have as much experience, but I'm sure it's happened in the vegetarian and vegan world as well. Where they're just taking straight advantage by being able to use terms and labels and not paying attention. And I think that's really important because coming from a paleo background, when I decided to go keto, I still wanted to keep it in the paleo framework, keeping things healthy. Like I still stay away from dairy, but I know that's really popular for a lot of people on ketogenic diets. Dairy just doesn't really work that well for me personally. And still eating fruits that are high in fiber. I mean, vegetables that are high in fiber, and then some fruit, same story, strawberries or blueberries or something like that. So you're a big advocate of clean eating with, Whole Foods and everything like that. Is there anything like problematic that you see people doing in keto diets?
Yeah. And dairy is one of them. So again, like dairy doesn't really work well for you. And honestly, it was so weird. One day I was like fine with dairy. I literally like woke up the next day and I was like, I ate some dairy and I didn't feel good. Like I bloated up immediately. And then it wasn't until this pregnancy that I was able to eat dairy again. It's the weirdest thing, but our bodies change, and that's why, we need to like recognize that, understand that macros aren't static, what we can and can't eat, or, what feels good for us isn't static and that needs to change. But dairy is something that I see as one of the main reasons that people start stalling or gaining weight or just not feeling good. They're just like overloading on dairy. I worked with a client one time that sent me her food logs, and like before dinner, like so breakfast and lunch, she had already consumed like 12 ounces of dairy. That's a lot. I mean, just a lot to put your body through. I really don't even recommend more than like 4 ounces of dairy per day for those people who can tolerate it. The other thing is sugar, alcohols, and sweeteners. So again, like some people are totally fine with them, but some of our clients who are, like insulin resistant, and we would need to work on in healing that and increasing their insulin sensitivity, we really have to watch their total carbohydrate intake. Well, listen, like 1 tablespoon of sugar alcohol, even though, it doesn't raise your blood sugar and it's quote unquote keto friendly. 1 tablespoon of that sugar alcohol could be like 16 grams of total carbs. What are you going to eat for the rest of the day that's healthy and whole and natural? Sometimes people really overdo it with like seed and nut butters. I like nut butters. I do. Honestly, I don't like them right now. I had an issue with peanut butter like right around when I first found out I was pregnant. So I'm like, oh God, I can't eat it. But I do like those things. But again, like those carbs, the calories, the fat grams, those really add up quickly in seed and nuts and seed and nut butters. And I see that as something, especially when people like plateau or they're not really feeling great, that's something that we look at. And like with that, not tracking and measuring something like that with precision, a tablespoon of peanut butter looks a lot different when you actually measure it out than when you just are eyeing it up.
Yeah, that's a big thing I like to point out. If I have any athletes who are big peanut butter eaters or almond butter, like, do you actually know how much you're consuming? Because I know I'm guilty of it as well. It's like, if you're taking a spoonful of it, you might be getting, and if you have 2 spoonfuls, that could be 4 tablespoons.
Totally, yeah.
It could end up being way more than you think it is.
Oh my gosh, I had a client who, once she actually started measuring it, realized that she was having like a 1/4 cup as a serving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dairy is so tricky. I do think some people are fine with it. I know when I first decided to go keto, I was like, well, I might experiment with some dairy just because I eat a lot of calories, and I was like, that it might be an easier way for me to stay off carbohydrates, but get it. Yeah. And I had 1 serving of sharp cheddar, one night, and I woke up. So my dairy issues are skin related. So I wake up the next day and I have acne all over my chin, and and it's immediate. It was like immediate, and I'm like, okay. And so I cut it out, and everything goes away. Nothing comes back. I'm like, it's just so obvious sometimes. my wife says I'm lucky in that regard, because some people don't know what the sensitivity is or how it's affecting them. Because if it's affecting my skin like that, I'm sure it's affecting a lot of other issues inflammatory wise. And so it's hard to find out what those are for each person individually. But do you work with people in that regard and help them find out if they are okay to have that or not okay?
Absolutely. And this is why it really is, listen, I know like tracking macros is something that a lot of people can do forever and ever. It's not something that I want to do forever and ever. However, I feel like it is such a great tool in the toolbox, especially early on. And it's why when I'm working with my clients, I do have them tracking what they're eating. And I don't just look at like what that pie chart looks like at the end of the day. I look at all of the foods that they were eating during that day, so that we can break that down. And I ask them those biomarker questions every day. Well, how are you feeling? How did this food feel for you? How do you feel at eating this with this macronutrient ratio? Were you hungry? Were you feeling satisfied? Are you having any skin issues? Is your skin clear? Are you happy with your food? Are you feeling like happy overall? Are you feeling sad or anxious overall? And this is a big one for women. What's happening with your hair? I have had women that have had like hair issues, like their hair falling out, and like they don't believe that it's like diet related, or, you know, they're losing weight at a steady pace, but their hair is falling out. And that kind of freaks them out when I'm like, okay, well, like we need to look at your protein and your carbohydrate intake because something's off here. And we may need to up one or both. And you're going to have to trust me on this, because just because you're losing weight, your hair falling out at a rapid pace is not a sign of health.
Yeah, is that normally indicative of too low carbohydrate or too low protein? What have you found in that regard?
Both. I mean, they can be both, or it can be something else, you know, like their thyroid function, their stress. Like, stress is a really big one that I think that we all kind of know that like stress affects our body in not a great way, but I don't think that we know to the depths that stress, like what stress does to us. Like, you know, hanging on to belly fat, hair loss, wrinkles, premature aging, all kinds of skin issues, digestive issues. Oh my gosh. Like, I know sometimes even for me, like when I feel like I'm under extreme stress, I have major digestive issues. And I don't think that people point back to that as a cause. They think, oh, it's just maybe something I ate or whatever. No, it's because you're under extreme stress and we got to bring that down.
Yeah, there's no way for people, I think, to really know. Everyone has that little check mark, like, yeah, I know I need to reduce stress or whatnot. It's like, well, really, you do. You know, you have some practice, some outlet for that. You know, I would love to know pick your brain for a minute on, as I mentioned, going keto and performance. I don't know if you maybe have experience working with people in, more performance-based sports or anything, but I would love to know what your recommendations are for people who are more performance-centric and looking to do a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, I was working with a couple of women in our Keto 40 group who they had decided to adopt a ketogenic diet, like maybe 30 days, 2 months out from a marathon. And they definitely felt that their performance was affected negatively by it. And I totally see that. I think that it takes a little while. So we can get into ketosis within a couple of days usually. Sometimes it takes other people a little bit longer depending on where they're at metabolically and all the other, and some of the other things. But generally, most people can get into ketosis within a couple of days. But being in ketosis versus being fat adapted, they're two different things. When we're fat adapted, our body is just readily using our body's fat stores for fuel. Our liver's producing those ketone bodies. It's a metabolic state. And it can take, a few months for people to become fully fat adapted. I like to kind of use like a 6-month marker, just to be a little bit general of like how long it takes somebody to become fat adapted, or when they can kind of safely know that they've been following, good ketogenic macros, they're eating a well-formulated ketogenic diet that's whole foods based, they feel good, they're looking good, they're doing good. I think, they're following that solidly for about 6 months. At that point, I think we definitely see an improvement in performance. But I wouldn't really recommend anybody that's got like an Ironman competition coming up or like a long marathon that's, right around the corner to start experimenting with this lifestyle right away. There's a really awesome book called The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance that really goes into depth with low carb performance athletes. And they've done like a lot of studies. That is kind of the handbook that I use as well. And they notice that they make a notice that there's a dip in performance usually in the beginning. But to just stay the course and things will change and your performance will improve. And I found that to be true myself. I found, even though my energy was really great early on, I noticed that I wasn't hitting as many miles on my spin bike, during class, like in the beginning. And then, a few months in, I was back up to, over 20 miles on my bike during the class.
Okay. Wow. So it definitely, it's a long period that, that if anyone's looking to switch or transition, you're going to have to definitely take the long view. And how do you recommend people measure, through your analysis or blood or breath? Like what do you have people do that stuff?
Only if they need to for medical purposes, or they just like are a numbers person, they really need to know. But the urine strips are really inaccurate. I mean, they're like gremlins. You can't get them wet. You can't expose them to light, right. Or else they just like aren't as accurate. The ketonics, like a breath measure, that works a little bit better. It's a little bit more accurate. But like if you've had alcohol and then you blow into that breathalyzer thing, it's going to show that you're in ketosis, right? Because acetone is a ketone body. The most accurate way to measure is by blood. I think it's best to measure if you're curious about how a certain food is affecting your body, because we're looking at ketosis as a metabolic state. We're not looking at foods really being like keto or not keto, because different foods affect people differently. If you are curious about how a food is affecting you, then measuring your blood ketones and your blood glucose after you consume that food is really helpful. I also think that for people that need to be in ketosis for health reasons, I think like an epileptic patient or someone who's a cancer patient, measuring ketones makes a lot of sense for them. And same, I think too, with our like type 1 diabetics. I think they're staying on top of measuring, their blood glucose levels. I think it's important for them, if they've decided to adopt a ketogenic lifestyle, to measure their blood ketones too, to make sure they stay in that safe range.
I think that's really, really great advice. I do think that people can get too crazy with tracking and worrying about that stuff when all the decisions they're making, if they're following a plan like yours, that it's they're headed in the right direction. They don't need to worry about all the little stuff just yet.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, I mean, I was just having this conversation with a fellow coach. You can be in ketosis but not losing weight. And it could be something with your calories. You're eating too much or you're eating too little. I mean, just because you're in ketosis doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be losing weight. Right.
And that's, I people want to not look at calories. Some, it's like, well, I cut out carbs or whatever, but, fat is so much more calorically dense. It's easy to eat a lot of calories if you're eating a lot of, healthy fats even. It can be pretty easy to go over, especially, it depends on where you're at calorically.
I've totally been guilty of that. Like sitting at my computer and instead of eating chips, like eating handfuls of pork rinds. Listen, look on if you are eating pork rinds, turn it over and look at the serving size. A serving size is like what, half an ounce? That is a handful. And if you're eating like handfuls consistently, listen, you are definitely going over your calories, your fat, and your protein.
Yeah, so when my very first week of keto, I was like, I just pre-packaged and prepared every single thing. And I actually realized that right off the bat with those pork rinds, the epic ones. I was like, so good too. I got these bags and I was like, wait, there's 5 servings in this bag. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to open the bag and then sparse them out into Ziploc bags because I just wanted to be so on point with my macros that first week to make sure I didn't screw anything up. And that's when I realized, I was like, man, because I'd eaten one of those bags before and I just ate the whole bag. It's just like, eat the whole thing. And they're like, oh, 5 servings. That's quite a bit.
Yeah. Nope. I've done the same thing.
I would love to hear about any, if any come to mind, transformations or success stories, people working with you, just to kind of put into perspective. We kind of have talked about performance and keto foods and whole food base and all that stuff, but I'd love for people to hear about, kind of the possibilities with this kind of diet.
There are 2 that come to my mind because they're my favorite ones. I have been working with someone who has been a stage 4 breast cancer survivor. Actually, not just breast, but breast, bone, lung, and brain. So she had all 4, and she's stage 4. So it never goes away. It just it goes in like, I guess, kind of like remission. But it never really goes away. So she didn't feel great, honestly, when we first started. When we were adapting her, and I think, it was electrolyte imbalance and stuff. But as we went on, her doctor was like, keep doing what you are doing because your blood cells look amazing. The cancer is not returning. You are shrinking the tumors. I mean, it was amazing. So she is, keto for life. She that was like a saving. This is a saving lifestyle for her. This is saving her life. And another one, a friend of mine was with me. She did like 3 rounds of my program with me to just like have that ongoing support going. And when she started with me, and then within the year, she ended up losing 100 pounds. Wow. And she's still on her journey, but this 100-pound weight loss for her, it changed so much. Like she was able to go to a fair and ride rides with her kids, which is something she wasn't able to do before. She was just so much more confident. She left a bad relationship. Like these are things that are just like, they're irreplaceable. They're priceless.
That's really amazing on both counts. Those are 2 phenomenal stories to highlight. And so the person who's in remission with cancer, I mean, did she seek out, did she just do some research and find out that, keto might be helpful, or was it suggested, or do you know how she kind of got started down that path?
Yeah, it was her daughter. Her daughter had kind of like found me and was asking me some questions and had done some research independently, and was like, I think that this could really help my mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. Because I don't know how much people know about cancer, and I'm certainly no expert, but I do know that, cancer can only has one source of fuel, and that's glucose. So if we cut out its only source of fuel, its only source of food, it's going to die. I mean, it cannot survive in the body. And obviously, there are more things outside of just nutrition that can be done. But this is a big one. And I can't make any claims, obviously, that like keto can cure cancer. I would never see that. But I do know that just based off of what we know scientifically about cancer cells, it makes sense that a ketogenic lifestyle would help kill off those cancer cells.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. You could look into all sorts of stories on, and studies they've done on ketogenic lifestyle and cancer and what it does to cancer cells. But then there's also fasting, because we have these cancer cells are just broken. They're not right. They're broken cells, right? And so I've been reading and hearing about these 24, 48, 72-hour fasts where cancer cells just die off because they're like, they can't survive in this environment. Only your healthy cells can. Is fasting something that you do with your clients?
It is, but I make sure that it's something that happens naturally. I think that, we talked earlier about like kind of easing into things. I think that when I say to somebody, hey, I'm going to lower your carbohydrate intake drastically. I'm going to cut out, starches and grains and gluten and sugar, and I'm going to shorten your feeding window to 8 hours a day. They're like, what?
Right.
Like, no, that's totally not sustainable for me. I love that it happens naturally with my clients. They just start kind of naturally skipping meals, or they tell me like, I'm really not hungry. Do I have to eat all this food? I'm like, no. I mean, as long as as long as we're watching them and they are keeping their metabolism up. When I work with clients who are like, no, I'm just not hungry ever, that's kind of a sign for me that their metabolism is like damaged and we got to wake it back up. I also personally, I went through an issue with adrenal fatigue. And during that time, fasting was something that I needed to give up. I needed to eat in at least a little bit more regular intervals with about 4 hours or so in between each meal. 4 hours was kind of really the max. But and I was able to heal pretty quickly. So when I do have clients that have adrenal issues, that's something that I look at. Also, like sometimes for women, fasting, consistent fasting over time can cause some of those issues that we were discussing earlier, like hair loss and not feeling so great and thyroid imbalances. Not for all women, but for some. And so when I notice that happening, I make sure that we switch just for a little while with more regular eating intervals, see how they're feeling, and then we can kind of slowly ease back in to some fasting. I like to continue to keep our bodies like active and switch things up a little bit. So something that like I'll recommend is, holding like, the intermittent fasting that you like, that feels good for you, whether it's, a 4, 6, or 8 hour feeding window during the week, like Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, let's do like 3 meals a day. Let's do breakfast, 4 hours, in between lunch, 4 hours, and then dinner. And, that seems to work really well for a lot of my female clients too.
Now, out of curiosity, when you had adrenal fatigue, was that during the window when you were doing like the multiple spin classes in a week and, you actually stopped your period? Was that during the same time period or was this a different time?
No, it was a different time, and it was actually like really like stress related. So, we were selling our house, we were moving, I was launching like 4 different programs. I was still teaching, like at that time I picked up more group fitness classes. It was just, I was trying to find a new school for my child. Like it was all like stress related. And I have been in overdrive for quite some time. Like I'm a person that I like working, I like working out, I like being on the go all the time. And I think I've been through bouts of adrenal fatigue at different points of my life, like kind of looking back on things. But this time around, I've just become like so intuitive about my body that when my adrenals crashed like a year and a half ago, I knew exactly what was happening. I knew exactly what had happened. I'd studied enough about it, and I was just like, I know what's going on, and I know that I just need to be really delicate with myself. And so I wasn't fasting. I was doing like 3 meals a day, still like totally keto. I upped my carbs maybe slightly, like my total carbs slightly. I cut back on fitness. I was still working out and still teaching, but definitely a lot less. And I stopped teaching the classes that were really, really intense, that were taking a lot out of me. I cut out, no, I'm not really a big drinker anyway, but I cut out alcohol, I cut out caffeine, and I cut out dairy. And I worked with my naturopathic doctor, and I went on a supplement protocol, and I listened to her. I listened to her advice, and I was able to heal myself in about like 3 or 4 months. And it also helped that towards the end of like my healing journey, my husband and I took this awesome vacation, and it was totally what I needed to get out of this like daily grind and just be in a place where I could like totally relax and enjoy vacation and being in somewhere new. All of these things were things that helped me heal.
That's awesome. And good to note, a lot of people don't hear about that much or know what all it takes to bounce back. Now I'm going to transition to the quick fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Insanity Max 30.
All right. Yeah, I've seen that one before. That's pretty difficult.
Yes, I cried several times.
All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Meditation and gratitude.
Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
My yoga mat.
All right, now here's the question of the show. What is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? This is 100% open-ended.
Get out of the comparison trap. If you are scrolling social media and you are wishing that you could look like this person or that person, or have what this person or that person wants, it's really detrimental to your health. Just accept you for who you are. Acceptance does not mean, that you're not going to continue to better yourself. It just means that you have your own journey on this earth. You were put here for your own unique purpose, and no one else's journey matters. It's yours and yours alone, and you are just put here to be the best version of you and make that possible in whatever way that looks like for you.
Love it. All right. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to go check out your resources, more information about you, your podcast, everything. So what's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Totally my website. It's like the hub for all. It's ketogenicliving101.com. You can connect with me there. I would love to connect with you, even if you just need to be like, hey, I just need like a word of pep me up talk today. I'll be like, yeah, me and Jared will call you and we'll give you like we'll give you some great love.
Awesome. Well, I will link to all that in the show notes, and anyone listening, you can click on the links and go check out what Kate has going on. Other than that, Kate, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Love chatting with you.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.